problems with the youth today. So I'd like first to introduce myself. My name is Matthew Valderrama. I'm the current chairman of a youth organization called the Peer Project. So basically what we do in the Peer Project is we travel to different parts of our city and also outside our city to give talks about character formation, leadership, and nation building. So to start this conversation, we actually have two individuals here from the Peer Project who'd like to share their insights about the problems the youth are facing today, especially during this quarantine. So if you'd like to add to the conversation, just feel free to open your mic and take the floor. So to begin, we have Joshua Pagmanwa.
So good evening once again, everyone. I am Joshua. So this pandemic has greatly affected us. It seems like times have changed. Wherein there was once full of people, or the malls were full of people, but now it seems like it's a ghost town, and we're really adjusting to this new kind of setting. But one problem that I think assume that is greatly affecting the youth is mental health, uh, and this with the suicide cases at the brink of increasing, in which it is highly prevalent and relevant in our region here in Western Visayas, in which based on what I have read, there were 72 cases recorded for the months of January until June 2020, which is, I think, a 7% spike with the last year, 67, with the same time frame. And I think, and a lot of those cases were recent cases, especially the two, it involved a 12-year-old boy, which was found hanging on a wooden bridge near their home, and the other one, a week later, a grade 10 student, which is like a fourth year high school student, was also found with this in the same scenario. He was also found hanging. And in those cases, their parents were believed that they blamed it in the modular setting of the education, because in the knowledge of Maria and Paul, in the country we have introduced this modular learning, in which teachers are delivering modules towards different parts of the city just to bring these lessons to the students. And with this new setting, it seems like students haven't adjusted, especially that with the risk of maybe catching COVID just right around the corner. So their allegations would say that they blame it on modular learning. But these are just mere hearsays, and I believe there are many factors which included why they had resulted to what they've done. But despite these hearsays, these cases, these alarming numbers, ring some bells to us to also spark the conversation, in which, knowing Philippines, which is a highly conservative country, we have seen like many taboos, many toxic Filipino cultures. But I think with a starting conversation we're in, just by talking with the family members or just some friends, just to vent out those frustrations, I think that would ease some feelings that we had. And I congratulate everyone here for really pulling this, and we have reached this far with seeing how many challenges we have gone through during this pandemic. So that is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, so it's really a pressing problem, modular learning and online learning. We're bombarded with tasks. Some are bombarded more, some are less. And what I think is it's a multivariate problem wherein, yes, there are many cases of suicide, but this modular learning and continuation of classes is one aspect that prompts people to like severe the mental health. So what I'd like to know is how severe do you think is the effect of this modular learning for the students today? So Paul, do you have any ideas about this?
When you talk about modular learning, you are talking just about online learning, or is there something else I have to know?
Yes. So basically, there's two things. First is those who have internet will pursue online classes, and those who don't will basically be given papers, handouts to be delivered in their homes, and then they will answer them.
Okay. I think it's good to make a distinction. Maybe I can ask you one question beforehand. That is, what alternative do we have right now in this COVID times? Um, I'm not an I'm not very supportive of online learning as the main way of learning. I'm also quite conservative about tablets in the classroom, about using a lot of screens, about giving kids Chromebooks and that kind of stuff. And the reason is that there has been no clear scientific evidence that it has pedagogical advantages if you compare to offline traditional learning. And I think there's a very clear example of that. That is that a lot of people working in Silicon Valley, like at companies of Facebook, they actually send their children to offline schools. So that make us think already like, okay, there's something wrong here. It is not clear that it has a good advantage. What I also think is at the same time, as well as we are now using this digital medium like a form of online learning, it's like the best we can get out of it. What I think is that this time of COVID, that we are more in the lockdown, can help us to reflect about what do we want when this ends. Because what I can imagine, and this is more of an hypothesis, so don't take it as a statement of my side, like a strong conviction, is that most of the people who are dealing now with more psychological problems or mental health problems, or people who are dealing, who have having struggles, a lot of struggles with this online environment, is people who before COVID started already had some problems. But now in this concrete context, it is stimulated more because they are in a small room, they're all together, they have not the freedom to go outside to have real human interaction. So maybe it's a very open and it's not very concrete what I'm going to say, and that has also to do with the fact that this COVID time is quite new. Is that what I encourage teachers and parents now is to reflect deeply about the value of offline learning, and to reflect more also about, okay, what can we learn from this COVID times when we actually go back to the classroom, in order to improve also like the development of the children, and what are the deep causes of mental health. Maybe further on we can talk a little bit more about that, but there are other causes of mental health. So that is what I want to say for now. I don't know if Maria wants to say something else about this issue.
Well, I think that we should really start to think not about technology and not about COVID, which might be part of the circumstances right now, but we should talk maybe about people, especially if we're thinking about mental health, but also if we talk about physical health or psychological well-being. It is true, as Paul said, that scientific evidence is not settled when it comes to the impact of technology on our learning. It's not obvious that we learn better because of screens, probably because we learn differently as people. So the tools that we may use make the difference, but the person learning makes a bigger difference yet. But those are circumstances, the technology and the pandemic. The truth, there is scientific evidence that has a lot to say when it comes to well-being, which I think is the key, even before mental health, either positive, good, or bad. If we are not okay, technology is not going to make us be okay, and the pandemic is not going to make us be okay. If we are vulnerable, whatever we experience will make us more vulnerable to take horrible decisions as the ones that you mentioned with students who decided to take their own lives. It is true this is mental health. I'm not sure we should talk about technology as part of the equation, except in the case of it being a circumstance. We can't close digital gap access without technology right now, because if we don't use technology, we're leaving a lot of students outside the learning box. And that happens just as well. We can't think that technology will solve all the problems, because there are students who will learn okay, even if it's through a screen, because they have the tools inside to keep their learning going. And there are students who will find such a lack of normalcy because they're not seeing their teacher or they're not seeing their classmates, that that will make it impossible for them to learn, or because they'll get distracted, or they're not resilient or autonomous enough to keep the rhythm going. So what I always say, and that's what my talk in a few weeks will be about, is the focus on the person. If a person is not okay, any circumstance will boost potentially bad decisions. If a person is okay, and with this okay, I know that I'm saying a small word for a lot of different things, but if a person is okay, that horrible decisions will take longer to come, if they come at all. So we should, students right now are going through a lot of different things. They're going through a change in learning. They're going through fear of what's going on around the world. If they're younger, they're actually afraid of the virus itself, of their parents getting ill, themselves getting ill, their grandparents getting ill. They miss their friends. They've lived in lockdown for months. In the case of Spain, they were 3 months inside the house with their parents. If they have technology, they have some kind of normalcy. If they don't have that normalcy. And if they have technology and access to the classroom, that doesn't guarantee that they're going to be able to actually learn, unless they were learning already with normal tools. So well-being is quite hurt right now for all of us. We're all afraid, we're uncertain, we're doubtful. Children and teenagers are so too. So it's not about, to sort of answer the question, it's not, I don't think it's about modular learning, about if this decision in your country is impacting directly on these decisions. I think people are vulnerable right now. And if they were even more vulnerable before this situation, they're bound to experience more heartache and concern and negative experiences than people who were sort of all right before the situation. I don't think students are making bad decisions because we have a pandemic and technology is part of the response for students to keep learning. I think people are taking bad decisions because these times are hard for all of us to cope with. I don't know if I make any sense.
If I can give one example of what Maria says, one thing that she said, because they have done some studies about that. That is that indeed, like new technologies, the digital world, or however you want to call it, smartphones, whatever, generally speaking, they are not the cause of mental health. There is not a correlation between a person, for example, like that the cause of a depression of a person is a smartphone or is a social media platform. But it stimulates an inclination of the person. So one example is, imagine that you have a child who has an inclination to autism. And there can be two scenarios, that this child, for example, has been raised up in a social, nice environment where he is regularly in touch with friends, playing outside, going at school, having clear boundaries on his what he can use from games and smartphones, like with clear rules, then you will help that person to deal with an inclination and you will have a good well-being. But if that same person is a lot inside, he has no much social contact with other people, his parents let him game and be on the computer and on the smartphone whenever he wants, then the inclination of that person to autism can be stimulated a lot. the same. They have done this. They have done the same, for example, with depression. For example, a social media application like Instagram can be quite harmful, and that is from the English Public Health Institution. They have studied that Instagram can be quite harmful for persons who have already a lack of self-confidence and who have an inclination to depression. But it's not like it's the cause of depression. It's that somebody has already some problems or an inclination towards, and that can be stimulated. So I think it's in the same line of what Maria says, that the challenge is not COVID itself in the sense of that is not a problem. It is a problem in the sense that it can stimulate already some stuff that were already harmful to the well-being of persons. So we have to find concrete solutions for this time. But this time is not like the big problem, this COVID time.
Hopefully we can see this pandemic as not the focus, but the trigger of a change, because we're seeing very non-coherent decisions and topics around the world. Just take, for instance, with these children are not having a normal school life, and so they're staying more at home, and so they're watching more screens, or they don't have screens, so they're not accessing the world because they're confined without digital means to access that world. And so if they have too many screens, the message is don't let them use too many screens. This is not good for them. Let's talk about screen time. And if they don't have screens, and so they're actually confined without access to learning, then we'll talk about digital gap, about access, about what should we do for all students to have the same opportunities. But that we're missing the point. We're talking about two completely different things, which are necessary. You just can't park your kid in front of a screen, and you just can't focus on those who don't have access to technology, because we need to put them all together. And if we don't do, then equality in access to learning will be a myth, will not be a reality. The problem is that depending on the country, the situation and the conversation is different. But well-being, the well-being of a person, and the responsibility of the decisions a person makes with or without technology should be the focus. And if in the case of education, each country, but globally too, we should talk about what our students need, because we're listening to a lot of conversations about how teachers should be prepared, what parents should do regarding screen time, what authorities should plan when it comes to digital curriculum. We talk about access, we talk about risks, we talk about learning, but we don't talk with the students about what they need, what they're experiencing, how they're fearing this. Do they feel equal to one another? Of course, if you have this modular learning and there's a specific student who doesn't have access to technology and is given in hand the materials he'll need for studying, that means that someone is relying completely on the student's capacity to work on himself or herself, to manage his own agenda, to decide whether he already knows the topic or doesn't, to even assess and evaluate himself. And of course, this is too much for students. It depends on the age, but it's too much. So we should talk about what students need and how adults, parents, teachers, school communities, authorities, and technology can help students in achieving what they need to thrive, and not focus on the rest of agents. We should, I think one of the best parts of this meeting today and in a few weeks, it's that it involves students' voices. It involves you guys. What do you have to say? What do you think the rest of us should do? How can you cope? How can you not? I think this is the real issue here.
Yes, I really agree on that. We have that freedom, but it's how we use that freedom that will make the difference. So we have another peer project member who'd like to share about technology addiction. But beforehand, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of our character formation director, Sir Giles. So welcome, sir, to our get together. So about technology addiction. Um, So we have this freedom, but it's how we use this freedom that will make a difference. It's how we use it responsibly. So with regards to technology addiction, Reno, would you like to share some insights?
Yes, hello everyone. So Paul and Maria, thank you so much for all of your insights. What some of your insights about like the over-reliance of technology in the youth is really relevant today, especially in the circumstances of the pandemic. And one of the implications of this over-reliance of technology is video game addiction. Um, but before I get into that, I want to acknowledge like we need to understand what video game addiction is and how it affects us regularly. So video games, we understand, are a staple of today's culture, and um, we have found video games as a form of entertainment. It's a form of stress relief, and it helps students, especially young people, get rid of stress by immersing themselves in a world where they can let their imagination run free. But going into this implication of over reliance on technology and video games, we have paved the way to allow technology to run our lives and our emotions, and it ends up in video game addiction. So the World Health Organization designates video game addiction as a mental disorder. And from my observations, it's mainly due to these like psychological effects that video game addiction has, especially you know when you think about addiction, it's mostly like you cannot live with this thing. It's this source of relief and happiness and satisfaction that you strive to acquire in your life. And then without this thing that you're addicted to, your life is nearly like as if it's meaningless. And that's the dangers of video game addiction. And in the in our current situation, the pandemic and quarantines has only exacerbated these negative effects that video game addiction gives to the youth. Especially one of them is that one of the main reasons why video game addiction is propagating further in these current times is because in modular learning, in online learning, we we have found ourselves sitting at our desks in our homes in an environment where we find comfort in an environment where we have less responsibilities, less obligations, especially the ones that we have lost, like having that responsibility to go to school or go to your workplace where like responsibilities are given, where the responsibility to pay attention to your teachers, to your coworkers and all of that is just lost. You're in your home and you're comfortable. So you tend to be, you become tempted to go to your games, to go to your forms of entertainment because all you want to do is, you know, to just like to be carefree. And that's what and that's what staying in your homes implicates, that you tend to be more carefree because you have less obligations and less responsibilities. And another one is our utilization of technology. You know, we're obviously on our computers, we're on our phones every day. We use it. We use it to. I'm sorry. What was that? Okay, I'm sorry. Technical difficulties. So we tend to use our computers for learning, but at the same time, we can be very easily distracted during our modular learning. Um, you know, we have our games on the side, and we have our extra tabs open beside us, and we're tempted to get distracted by those things because we have a tendency to be adverse to modular learning because it's stressful and it's ineffective. So, concluding, um, we can say that video game addiction is undeniably prevalent, undeniably relevant, and undeniably falsifiable. So, for you guys, I want to know like how can the youth in this time acknowledge the dangers of over reliance of technology and video games?
You make very good questions, all of you.
Do you want to answer first, Maria, or shall I answer?
No, you start. It's okay. It's okay.
So this is one of the topics I will be talking more about in the conference, because it's about digital addictions. But it is indeed a very good question and very good analysis. I had to smile, Reno, when you ask at the end, how can young people acknowledge this problem? Well, my vision is they will not fully acknowledge it until they are adults. And it is also to do with the development of their brain, because their brain is still very vulnerable and is much more focused on the short-term gratification than on the long-term vision of what I can get out of it. So maybe a short answer is already parents and teachers have to protect them of course, in a responsible way. It's not about, they also have some freedom and they are capable of thinking about it, of course. It's not, they're not empty plants kind of persons, but we have to protect them. That is the first thing. Look, so I'm not going to talk a lot about it, but just one concept that can already help, because it's not only about gaming addiction. So in the 60s, there were two guys called Nico Tinbergen and Konrad Lorenz who got a Nobel Prize for their research to what they call supernormal stimuli. A supernormal stimuli is a concept that, from one reason or another, is not very well known, but it's everywhere present in our daily life. As the name already says, a supernormal stimulus is a normal stimulus that is augmented, like in a very big way. Okay, so what are examples of supernormal stimuli? It can be, for example, fast food, pornography, gaming, action movies, kind of toys that you see around, and they're present in the animal kingdom and among human beings. One thing that they researched about supernormal stimulus like gaming is that actually the person prefers the gaming, like the adventure, the excitement he gets in the gaming world. And he gets so much stimuli out of it that normal stimuli, like playing a board game or being outside chilling with your friends, they don't get the stimuli that they get out of gaming, because it's a not natural, super normal stimuli. Is it bad in itself? Gaming is not bad in itself. The same as if you go every 2 months with your family to the mall. I know you Filipinos love going to the mall. And you go to the mall and you go to, I don't remember what is the name of the typical McDonald's in the Philippines. You have an own fast food famous.
Jollibee.
But anyway, you know what I mean. It's not bad to go once in 2 months with your family to eat some fast food. And it's not bad that your boy plays a video game once in a while. But the whole thing is that it has such an attraction. It's so strong that if we don't protect them with clear rules, and if we don't give them reasonable alternatives, then it becomes much more easy to become a game addicted. Let me give one example, for example, more for the parents. If the parents don't think about leisure time as a family, if they don't think how they can help their children to spend their time in a meaningful and a joyful way, if the children see their parents continuously being busy with smartphone, with work, if the parents say, go entertain yourself, and they don't think together with the child, is it then surprising that a child will seek his comfort in a video game? So I think there is a big responsibility for parents in order to help their children to find like an alternative and to educate them in that, because there is a lot of leisure and of alternative, joyful ways of spending your time, but they demand maybe more energy, or they demand a kind of training. Let me give one example. Reading. Reading as a pleasure is something that you have to develop. It's not that you get a book of Dostoevsky or Charles Dickens and say, oh, this is so nice. No, actually, you have to learn to focus, to appreciate it. The same with art, the same with music. you can train and develop yourself, but that needs time and patience. If we don't give the children the means to appreciate that kind of leisure activities, they will go for the short-term, immediate gratification, like they will find in gaming or in other stuff. So that is what I can say a lot of stuff about this, but that is like the main thing. Oh, one other thing, just one other thing. You said, Reno, I found it also funny. They go to a place like gaming where they're getting their imagination rent free. Well, actually, the imagination is not stimulated by gaming. It's like it's captivated by something else. There are maybe some people say Minecraft can develop creativity. Maybe it's true. I don't want to generalize about everything, but in most of the cases, it's the same as reading a book or watching the movie about that book. It's a complete other development of the creativity of the brain. I'm not saying it's bad, but it's not like that we stimulate the imagination and creativity of a child if we let them game them. It's not a rule, okay? So maybe it's evident, but I just wanted to say that.
Okay, I could also say a lot of things, but I'm going to try to be brief. And in my answer, I'm going to mix two things, my work and also my experience as a mom of three. I've got three children. The two boys do like video games and the girl doesn't. So I'm going to mix both things in my answer, my view as a professional and my view as a mother. First, the World Health Organization talks about mental health in video games, but it doesn't say that if a child plays a video game once, he'll become addicted. And when it talks about addiction, it talks about video games interfering in the normal life of a child or teenager. So the normal life of a child and teenager is something that families and adults around that child should evaluate, because not all children are the same. My eldest child, who is 16, plays different video games, and because of his character and personality, he's okay with stopping, and he has an age in which he sometimes says, okay, I need to study, so it's time to get off the FIFA or the Formula One competition or whatever. And then my 10-year-old boy, because of his character and personality, finds it very difficult to stop and finds it very difficult to lose and not get mad in his real life because he lost in a specific whatever tournament of the video game that he plays with. So character and personality impacts directly on the way any person, but especially a young person, relates to video games. When it comes to younger children, like my younger boy, I think we're missing the opportunity, parents and teachers, but mostly parents, to try and promote the fact of video games being part of the rest of the leisure activities of the child. And I'll put a specific example. If my child likes Minecraft or Among Us, which is the video game that is very popular right now in Spain, I'll try to boost that those video games are part of his real life too. So he will, I don't know, play with Legos and try to build something that has to do with Minecraft, or he will play Minecraft during break time at school with his friends, or he will have these diamond sword that he will play with in the living room, pretending he's Steve, which is the character in Minecraft. So if the video game is just part, as Reno said, of a very exclusive experience for the child, in which it's the screen and me, I'm playing and nothing else, I think, of course, it doesn't set anything good, but the addiction will not appear in 24 hours. So it's a role of adults to be around that child and try to assess if the video game is becoming too much of the only thing that child will do to entertain himself. If we're talking about older kids, older children, teenagers, young people, Reno said something that my teenager says to me every single day, which is that online classes are stressful and not really efficient. So his temptation will be that of just not connecting. And of course, if he doesn't connect and he's at home because he can't go out, he'll have two options in his case, which is to try and make whatever audiovisual content he wants to, because that's what he wants to do when he grows up, via VFX compositing, or play video games, right? So, but he also says temptation. And Rena said, how do we help younger generations to gain knowledge? If we're talking about younger children, we have to increase awareness about among parents. And if we talk about teenagers, we have to increase awareness among those teenagers. If we want to increase awareness among younger children, we can't just tell parents that video games are wrong and dangerous, because what we need to teach our children is to make decisions. Sometimes we have to make decisions ourselves, like no more video games for today, but they have to make decisions too. And when we talk about younger people, we have to keep on helping them make decisions. If life is full of temptations and stressful situations, we can't take them out of the equation, either video games or whatever other negative experiences. So we have to learn, you guys have to learn, my son has to learn to manage those situations, resist temptations sometimes, and assume that something in his life is stressful and maybe inefficient, so he has to find a way to make it less stressful and more efficient. But not just say, video games are here, they're a temptation, so, you know, it's not something that I can control. If the message is video games are bad, we're never going to take a step ahead. Because first, I go back to what I said before, some children are absolutely more predisposed to become addicted to video games because they're compulsive, because they're nervous, because they're competitive, and some children are not. And just to finish with this, and I know that Paul talked about reading, but during this pandemic and specifically during lockdown, when we were inside our homes for many months, and even now we're not locked, we're not in confinement, but we are advised not to go out a lot. My daughter, who is 13, does not like video games. She loves reading, which is great. No one criticizes me for letting her read. But because of her books being her world, whenever she's not in class and she reads a lot, she never wants to go out anymore. She says she wants to stay home reading because that's what gives her what she needs. And I don't think that's good for her either. I know reading is better than video games in the theory that we're all used to, but my girl needs to go out too, and she doesn't want to because she wants to stay home reading. So what we need is to help our children make decisions about how to manage their time and how to manage their leisure since they're young, and then progressively when they grow older. I don't know if Reno, this answers your question, but how can we help younger generations to gain knowledge about the danger of video games? We should tell young people that there are a lot of difficult decisions that people have to make during lifetimes. One is, maybe I should not play with this video game right now because I've already been with it for 2 hours, or because I have to study. Just as maybe there are a lot of days in which I think I don't want to prepare dinner because I'm tired of preparing dinner every night, but I have to. I would rather watch TV. I would rather watch Netflix. I would rather read, but I have to prepare dinner. And it's a very silly decision, and it's not dramatic, and it doesn't cause addiction, but we have to constantly make decisions to avoid going into what we would love to do right now, and instead doing what we have to do right now.
All right, thank you, Maria and Paul. So basically, it's all about finding the balance. And speaking about books, I've actually been reading, I'd like to dive deeper into another topic, which is morality. So recently I've been reading books about Nietzsche. And so I've been prompted to think about the current situation regarding morality. So I'd like to begin with a statement, then a question. So millennials currently are living through a unique historical situation. They are, as according to Norman Doidge, a Canadian psychiatrist, the first generation to have been so thoroughly taught two seemingly contradictory ideas about morality simultaneously at their schools, colleges, universities, by many in my own generation. That's what he said. This contradiction has left them at times disoriented and uncertain, without guidance, and more tragically, deprived of riches they don't even know exist. One idea or teaching is that morality is relative, at best, a personal value judgment. Today, the postmodernist left makes the additional claim that one group's morality is nothing but its attempt to exercise power over another group. So, the decent thing to do, once it becomes apparent how arbitrary your and society's moral values are, is to show tolerance for people who think differently and who come from different, diverse backgrounds. That emphasis on tolerance is so paramount that for many people, one of the worst character flaws a person can have is to be judgmental. And since we don't know right from wrong or what is good, just about the most inappropriate thing an adult can do is give a young person advice about how to live. And so, a generation has been raised and tutored in what was once called aptly practical wisdom. Thus, relativism's closest approximation to virtue is tolerance. On different forms of social media, therefore, you signal your so called virtue, telling everyone how tolerant, open, and compassionate you are, and wait for likes to accumulate. So, what I would like to ask is this: in this current situation, what do you think can serve as our basis for right and wrong, and why should it be our basis?
I think, Paul, I'm going to start this time because this is my topic. How old are you guys?
We're senior high schools, a couple of high school students, and college students from UANP.
And that's between what ages?
Around probably 15 to 20.
Okay. I think technology is not the problem that your generation is facing at all. I think the problem that you have is the horrible example society is giving you. Adults are giving you. We're setting a very bad example. And the first example of that bad example is that adults are constantly sort of judging people your age because of the decisions that you make regarding technology, but also regarding other topics, as if I would have done it better if I was your age now. Being a teenager right now, I think it's very difficult, not because it's more difficult than it was 30 years before, physically or biologically or neurologically, but because you're exposed to a larger world. And this, yes, is because of technology. I think we can't demand you guys to be wise, because wisdom, as you said, is something that comes with experience. We're demanding you to make intelligent decisions, smart decisions, safe decisions, positive decisions, creative decisions, and wise decisions. What we should think is that we have to teach you, lead you with example, but also, as I said before, demand responsibility. I think we all know what is right and what is wrong. Values, there are some parts of values that people think are not one thing. And I guess it's because we confuse those with thinking or position or beliefs. So we don't know whether it's better to believe in God or not, to be left-wing or right-wing, or to save money instead of spending it. Those are beliefs, decisions, customs, habits, ways of life. But we all know what is right and what is wrong. We all know taking someone else's life is not okay. We all know insulting is not okay. We all know respecting people is better than not doing that. And we all know that being tolerant with someone different is actually better than not being tolerant with someone different. We all know that that's better. The problem is that it's hard to act in consequence. So for me, it's very confusing to think of what we should teach younger people about this, if we as adults are not doing it okay. We're living in a world not just with a pandemic, but with extremism and populism, and mostly with the incapacity to have a conversation with someone who thinks differently without arguing, without creating an argument. And I think at least that's what I work most with students when I have workshops with students is, I think tolerance is the first step, and then come the rest. But values are one thing. Being generous only means being generous. Being patient only means being patient. We know what it means. Being tolerant, being good to people, we all know what it means. It should mean the same with technology. And as long as we don't understand that, and we think that we can be good people offline, even if we're not good people online, as long as we think that, we're sending out the wrong message. So I completely empathize with younger generations, because I'm very young and I remember my teenage years very well. We ask a lot of empathy from you guys, but adults don't act empathetic at all, online and offline.
All right, thank you, Maria. Paul?
Yeah,
Yes.
we didn't hear you. Now we do.
Yeah. Now to add some more stuff on what Maria said, I think one very important thing, first of all, I'm not going to give, for example, a Christian talk about what is moral and what is not. Okay, that is something you can figure out for yourself, and I think it's not like the main thing of this talk right now. Some things I think are very important, and it can help you as young people, and also as, of course, as adults. You're in a stage of your life that you're discovering ideals. You're discovering, or I would encourage you to discover, to go for that. What are meaningful, deep ideals that I want to pursue in life? Ideals of love, of friendship, of professional jobs, of what you can mean for society, etc. Okay, that is what ideals. Morality is there in order to help you to pursue those ideals. One very important thing is that, imagine that I have a big ideal about love. Okay, I want to find the girl of my life. I want to find her, and I want to love her for always, and I want to have wonderful children with her, etc. Okay, in that case, a very important rule for morality is that your ideals influence your behavior, and your behavior influences your ideals. And this is in the line of Maria said about offline and online. That is, if you behave in a way that is not according to your ideals, it will actually influence not only your behavior itself, but also your ideals. And that is the value of integrity and of unity of life. Try to be the same person everywhere. And we are all weak and we fall, and that is part of life, it's no problem. It's not about being perfect. It's about being consequent and about trying to pursue that unity of life. So that, for example, let me give one problem that is a big challenge nowadays for boys, but also for girls. That is, how can you look into the face of your girlfriend and say, I love you, if at the same time, whenever you feel the impulse, you watch online pornography? It influences your perception of love. I'm not saying, we all have to deal with it. I'm not saying that a person who watches some pornography cannot recover and go on a good bed. No, of course. It's more like the idea that when you watch pornography, it will influence your perception of love and your capacity of love. Okay, so that is one thing I want to say. It is that your behavior influences your ideals, and your ideals influence your behavior. So try to act in a coherent way. And I think you can understand it even better than adults, as you are people who, because of your age, because of the stage of your life, you're very open to what life has to give to you. And you're also starting on a path of your life, like, I'm going to use my freedom. I want to achieve meaningful things in life. So I think that you are even more capable of doing this, and you could give us much better example than adults. Let me give you one other example about this, about things that we adults can learn. Because the whole thing is that, and I imagine that you have the same, this is when your parents say to you something like do this or don't do that. But if they give the bad example themselves, they lose authority. And that is quite logical. Actually, some years ago, I was in Manila giving conferences at a school for girls. And I asked them, and were girls of your age, and I asked them, raise your hand if one of your parents check his smartphone during dinner. And 75% of the girls raised their hands. Thank God, after that, I had the parents in the room. And I said to them, I've asked to your children to educate you because it seems that you don't know how to use your smartphone. It has impact. So you have this capacity. This is one idea. And one other idea that I want to share about you about morality that I think is also very important nowadays. All the beautiful and wonderful ideals, like really beautiful, wonderful ideas in life require effort, patience, and virtues. So does that mean that everything that does not require patience, effort, and virtues is bad? No, of course not. What I'm trying to say is that don't let yourself lead by a misperception that important, valuable things in life, that you can achieve them automatically without effort. It's not like that. Real love is sacrifice. The same for real friendship, the same for fulfillment in your job. It means studying hard, working hard, having patience, falling and standing up, etc. It means focus, dedication. So I think that can be also like a useful, how you say that, like a useful way of testing what society is telling you. If society is telling you, look, you can achieve this easily without effort, then be skeptical about it. I'm not saying deny it, but be skeptical, be critical. Okay, because, for example, if society says to you, like, I don't know, what it could be, you can easily make friends through this digital platform. That platform can help you actually to come in touch with people who can become your friends. But becoming friends, it's not only giving likes to a picture, and you know that. It's much more than that. And the same way, you can easily learn this new language through this application. Maybe it can help you. It is a useful way. But actually learning the language takes an effort. Maybe the things are evident for you, but I just want to frame it like that. Try to focus your morality on your ideals, and try to watch, to be aware of what society is telling you, like using this kind of rules, because I think it can help you in a world where you're getting an overload of information, of impressions, and of different perceptions of reality. And even if sometimes it's annoying, listen to your parents. At least listen to them seriously, okay? Even it can be annoying, because actually they have an experience in life and they have an unconditional love for you that is really worth to take seriously, okay?
Thank you, Paul. So basically, pursue our ideals. What I got from it was pursue our ideals with grounded by virtues, dedication, and focus. Is that right, Paul?
Yeah, and the thing of that your behavior influences your ideals.
Behavior influences our ideals.
Also,
Okay.
I would add not just pursue your ideals, but choose your ideals, because whatever you think in life can become your ideal, but maybe it's not an ideal to focus on. I don't know if I'm explaining myself, but choose your ideals. My daughter is all about social justice and she wants to do a lot of things to change the world and stuff like that. But she can't just pursue all her ideals because she will then achieve none. So maybe choose your ideas and share them. In the case of my daughter, share them with me. And I'm obliged to listen to her and then to talk to her. And she will listen to me and I will listen to her. And then there's a dialogue, and that happens with parents and with teachers and with people that they will meet and their friends. So choose the ideal, not just pursue, choose it carefully, because we end up pursuing a lot of different goals throughout life, and maybe we should work more on choosing our ideals with strength. And then, as Paul said, working and making an effort and being constant and being perseverant and resilient, then we will achieve our goals.
Okay, thank you, Maria. So choose our ideals. So collect and select. So to wrap this up, we're running out of time. So I'm opening the floor for a couple of questions. If anybody has questions, you can message me in the chat. Are you UNP friends? Do you have any questions?
Matthew, I have a request from Paul and Maria. If we can ask them to do a very short, like sort of invitation to the Filipino people to catch them on November 27 and 28. We're recording this so that we can possibly use it for our for our advertising, marketing. So maybe we can start with you, Maria. We have something from Paul actually already, but
Oh, I know. I owe you a short video that I actually recorded this morning. I was going to edit and send it to you later today, but I can do it now. Wow, okay. But I don't have to introduce myself, or should I introduce myself?
a little, maybe it's a very short video that we're going to send out to all the schools in the Philippines.
Hello, my name is Maria, and I'm talking to you from Spain. In a few weeks, by the end of November 27th and 28th, I'll be sharing time with you, families and teachers and students in the Philippines, to talk about technology and people, to talk about our responsible use of tech in these hard conditions we're living now. And I hope you'll join us to have a meaningful conversation and learn from each other through reflection and conversation. I hope we can meet there.
That's awesome. Thank you, Maria. Paul?
Hi everyone, I'm Paul Graas, but you can say Paul Graas because it's too difficult to pronounce Graas. This digital world is new for all of us. Okay, so it's not, we don't have like something we can base on what do I have to do in this situation. But coming together with so much inspiring people, sharing our knowledge, sharing advice with each other, and really taking time to reflect about these issues is a wonderful way of helping yourself and helping your children, helping your students to really improve and make the best out of this wonderful digital age that give us so much opportunities. So I hope to see you there because it's really worth it.
Awesome.
Yours was so much better, Paul. I'm going to have to repeat mine and send it.
I had more time to think about it, Maria. Sorry.
So Matthew?
Right, thank you, Maria and Paul. So right now we're going to just have a short Q&A and then we're going to wrap up the discussion. So we have one question from UNP. Regarding gadget addiction, I noticed that most parents immediately buy their children devices, even for ages as young as 3 to 6. What is your opinion on this, and how would you explain if this is good or bad for their development?
Can you repeat the question, Matthew, please?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Regarding technology gadget addiction, I noticed that most parents immediately buy their children devices, even for ages as young as 3 to 6. What is your opinion on this, and how would you explain if this is good or bad for their development?
This is one of the topics that I will cover during my talk, the decisions and the access to technology, which should be gradual and not immediate. I think parents, we are forgetting about that. Technology does not appear in the lives of our children because of a miracle. We open the access to technology for our children, and sometimes we're not very consequent with why we let them use these gadgets, because we focus on how much time should they use the gadget. The gadget itself will not create an addiction. If you hand out a smartphone to your children and it doesn't have Wi-Fi connection or mobile data or apps installed in it, the child will not do anything with it. So it's not the gadget, it's the contents and the behavior and the kind of access that families will allow. So we have to focus as parents on enabling a gradual access to technology for our children according to their age. And then comes a point in which there will have to be a progressive autonomy in the decisions of the teenager when it comes to deciding what to do, how much to do, and with whom to do whatever that involves a screen. But we have to reflect more about the access that we open to technology among our children, not because it creates addiction. We have to stop focusing on raising up our children on the what to avoid. We have to start raising our children on the how to help them manage whatever they encounter in life. Because we're tending to do with technology something that we don't do with the rest of education. And I think that's not working. So it's not free Wi-Fi bar for the children to use, and it's not complete banning of technology as the demon. I think we have to find a balance, as we do with, I don't know, food, nutrition, for instance. But for that, we need to be involved and informed, and I think that's the key, not the gadget itself. The gadget itself is not good or bad for the health or learning of our child. It's the decisions that first we as adults make, and then teach them to make what can create problems in the future.
And I want to add only one idea that you can apply for yourself, like for younger people as well as parents. That is, we don't have to underestimate the importance and the power of, let's say, social community. What I try to say is the next thing. If you have a child who is 9 or 10 years old and everybody in his classroom has a smartphone, but he hasn't because his parents don't want him to have a smartphone, you're making it terribly difficult for that person, for that boy or girl, to catch up, for example, with friends, to keep in touch and to move on. But when, for example, as a group of parents, you try to share experiences and more or less try to, let's say, adapt the rules, it's much more easier. And the same, for example, for you. For example, if you could make like a deal with your friends, like saying, hey, why don't we don't message each other between, let's say, 3 and 6 o'clock, so we have time then for study and for other stuff, and then at a specific time we can keep in touch with each other, or we can play this game online, or be on this gadget. That makes it much more easy than when I'm studying and all my friends are chatting or gaming or whatever. So the power of social community in order to create that balance where Maria talked about, I think that is very important. One book that I liked, and that is more maybe for parents, but it's called I Rules. I will write it in the chat. It's from an American mother who made like a smartphone contract together with her husband and her teenager boy. And it's not like you have to do it like this, but it is an example of how you could do it. It's like, I think it's inspiring.
With the rest of things we do as parents, like if my son goes to football club, I will try and go to his practice on weekends or to his matches. And then when he talks about how he scored a goal, I will say, wow, you're so good. Or when he loses a match, I'll say, don't worry, there will come another match and maybe you guys will do better. There's a relationship there, and it's personal and it's educational and it's contextual, because we're talking about football in this case. We need to help parents and understand that we have to do the same with technology. And if my son talks to me about Fortnite, because I've decided that I'm letting him play Fortnite, informing myself about it before or whatever, then I have to be welcoming in the conversation too. And if he's good playing at Fortnite, then I have to say, wow, you're good at surviving in the island. How come? Can I watch you play? Or I don't know, or which one of your friends is best at this video game, or why do you think your other friend is so popular and has so many followers? We have to converse and dialogue in the family about technology, even before the children take part in digital environment. We have to talk about this, because even if we don't let them use technology, technology is part of our lives now. So we have to talk about it from a human and family perspective.
All right, thank you, Maria and Paul. So right now, since we're running out of time, other questions maybe you can ask on the day of the event if we're gonna have a Q&A. So right now, I'd like to give the floor to Ms. Max Valdez, the Program Director of UANP Junior College, to close our discussion.
Hi,
So,
good evening, Voyagers. Thank you, Matthew, for the introduction. I'd like to say hi to Maria. I haven't met you yet, but this is a good opportunity to say hello finally. And of course, hello, Paul. I'd like to say hello also to the Block representatives who made it this evening. Thank you for joining us. I hope you learned a lot, and I hope you are as excited as I am to learn more from our speakers. Before we go, let's have a quick selfie. So if you want to join us, turn on your camera and have a nice smile. You know, Filipinos love photos. Maria and Paul knows this. So we will just have a nice photo. This is a very, this is a very important event for us this school year. So if we can just keep smiling, because we have 2 sheets, so I'm just gonna keep smiling. Okay, 1, 2, 3, smile. And there's another page, so just hold your smile. All right, so thank you so much, Maria and Paul. Thank you to all the Voyagers from WESTBRIDGE. We are looking forward to working closely with you in promoting this conference. Thank you as well to the Block representatives, of course, Mr. Dionat and Mr. Rentoy. Have a lovely evening and see you at the conference. Goodbye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Goodbye.
Paul. Thank you,
Bye.
Maria. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you very much. Okay, have a great day, everyone. See you around.
Goodbye.
Okay, goodbye.
Thank you and goodbye, everyone.